2:17. Let me call the meeting back to order. 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a quorum, and what I want to do at first, council, is look at item 19 is the pay issue, and then items 22 through 28 are budget issues, and then I'm suggesting that the overwhelming part of the audience is mostly interested in what are we going to do with the water issues, and so I think we should take up 29 and 30 and do that first, and then double back and hit and go from there. Yeah, it's always helpful for me. Raise your hand if you're here for water. Okay, so we'll make a run at water first, and that way people can get on about their business, and then we'll turn around and do some of the other issues. What? No. So, okay. And so let's start then with item number 29. This is the first public hearing and consideration of introduction of an ordinance amending Article 11.2 of the Water Conservation and Drought Contingency Ordinance by adding a new subsection to the exception and variance section. We have a presentation by the Water Utilities Director, Will Wilde.
Mayor, Council, under the current ordinance, as part of the Water Conservation Drought Contingency Plan, the Council has the authority to grant variances and exceptions. Under the current procedures, those would have to be brought individually. Each person or each group that may be requesting a variance or an exception to any part of the ordinance would have to go through the application part, and the council would have to consider each one on an individual basis. The proposed amendment to the ordinance would streamline that process, and let me just read what the proposed amendment is. Under the exception part of the ordinance, it would be amended to include the following. It says the City Council may allow exceptions to any provisions of the article, and the council may place conditions upon any exception. So with that proposed wording, then the council would then have the authority to take up entire group considerations, such as if you had all of a certain type of use could be included in one exception vote without individuals having to submit those particular applications on their own there. So that is a very short summary of what it would do right there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, questions for the gentleman?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Mayor, the question I had was, what form would this action take? In other words, would we need to amend an ordinance, and of course the readings and notice and all that goes with that, generally 2 meetings, that kind of thing, or is minuted action enough? And it appears that this ordinance grants council the authorization to make these exceptions through minuted action, that we don't need to amend the ordinance because granting an exception would not be amending the ordinance. Granting an exception is authorization within the ordinance. And of course I'd like confirmation of that. I'm sorry to spring that on you.
No, but not at all. But it does appear that we've changed the language within the ordinance that is in the section for the granting of the exceptions. I think we've added one sentence, so I think it might be amenable.
So with the existence of this language in the ordinance, council would simply be able to take minuted action in order to grant or rescind or modify an exception in accordance with these terms.
Right, but are you referring to whether or not we need to pass an ordinance currently to effectuate this exception, or are you
good point. No, I'm assuming that with this language in place, that council would be able to, through a vote, a motion and a vote, and that minuted action, there would be authority there granted to suggest that certain activities were allowed or not allowed that would be exceptions to the specified restrictions in this ordinance.
Exactly, well stated.
And the key for us is that as we move forward with this language in place, if one of you decides that, or comes to know that a certain act is beneficial and doesn't cost a lot of water, then you could propose, I make a motion that we allow watering by green buckets instead of blue buckets, or whatever you might propose. You could do that through that type of action without the recreation of an ordinance or undue delay. That this mechanism allows you the quickest action and the most flexibility.
Well, but, okay, but at the same time, it would seem to me that we're being restricted from actually acting on specific recommendations today, because
we don't have an ordinance that would
because
allow
we don't
that.
have an ordinance that allows that. So it sounds like to me, the way that this has come forward today, we would basically take a vote to approve the amendment that Mr. Wilde just allowed. And then at the next council meeting, we would have a second reading and put it in place, at which time maybe a subsequent agenda item could allow us to address the car washes, the pools, are you tracking with what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, and I agree with what you're saying. And I think that is. In other words, we could have brought an ordinance which said, which eliminated any language related to car washes today.
Right.
But that wouldn't have given you flexibility on other items.
Right.
And so the difficulty in predicting what might be an appropriate action in the future caused
Right.
Mr. Wilde to produce this language, which gave you much more flexibility.
Now, then the second part of that is what you were asking council, that if this ordinance were voted through today, second reading, and it's voted through at the next council meeting, and there were a subsequent item on the agenda, so now you've had a first reading, second reading, you've voted something through that allows you to amend the ordinance, and you had a subsequent item that you then addressed some of these specific issues. Would we be able to make those changes, exemptions that day, effective basically immediately, or would we have to do those as a first and second reading?
Well, the exception and various provisions are, well, initially they were upon petition
Right.
of the requester. So I think that once the ordinance is in place, you could proceed to act pursuant to the new provisions
Okay.
without having to have an ordinance.
Okay, so then parsing this a little further, is it in place after we approve it on the
Yes.
second reading?
Yes.
Okay, immediately.
So just make sure I understand. So what we would put into place after the fact might be some more like a resolution type thing, correct?
Right.
Against this ordinance.
Against it?
Well, not against it, but
Using
making
this-
exceptions
Right.
to
Yeah.
this ordinance.
Utilizing it, correct.
And that's a one
In
reading.
addition to.
That's a one reading? Correct. Okay. I just so we know how it's all gonna play.
Right.
It works in the opposite direction also, and that
You could
is.
make it more restrictive.
The one
Exactly.
reading, we can take it back.
Exactly.
Or parts of it back.
Exactly. And that's the key, that's the biggest benefit here, is the flexibility it gives the council.
Okay.
Ms. Farmer?
I need to understand the wording, the verbiage in here, exceptions. Does that mean that the businesses or individuals still need to go down and make application? Yes or no? For an exception?
This
Yes
does
and
not
no.
preclude them and does not require them. What this does is allows council to act. This is language that allows council to act as their judgment directs them.
Can we put the language up on the screen for the folks in the audience?
I think the short answer is that what we are going to try to address, instead of each one of those people all filing individual exemptions for their swimming pool or their car wash, is that we're going to do a blanket, basically, exemption to say car washes are allowed this, and swimming pools are allowed this.
The other
But
thing.
it doesn't preclude
Doesn't preclude.
someone out there who has an issue that we don't even
Right.
know
Right. It-
from
the
petitioning
variance-
us to
Right,
to
correct.
consider that.
Mayor,
okay?
you're correct. The variance provisions are still in place for individuals who wish to petition council to request an exception.
Yeah.
So,
So I have a. That's the same thing I'm saying.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Morrison.
The way I read it, the way the ordinance says right now is that each individual must request a written exception, and the way this reads is that an individual may now request an exemption, or a group of individuals representing a specific group. I don't see what the deal is. I'm going to make a motion to pass it, that an exception can be made by an individual or a group of individuals, businesses, or similar water users to the city council.
Yes, sir. You made a motion.
I'm going to second that motion.
Okay. I have a motion and a second,
For the sake
basically
of discussion.
to approve it.
It doesn't change
No,
anything.
but to
No, it
approve it
doesn't.
as
You're on
presented.
the main ordinance.
Yeah,
main
it
one.
doesn't change anything. The main ordinance says an individual may request an exception,
Or-
and we're saying an individual may request an exception, or a group of individuals represented by one may request. So all we're doing is adding a paragraph here, or a sentence.
There's more, seemingly more to it.
It's not the way I read it.
Okay.
The exception can apply to an individual or a group of individuals, businesses, or similar water users. So an individual may apply for an exception, or a group of individuals may be represented by one person as a group to apply. I don't see anything. I don't think
Well,
it's
there's a
anything
little,
difficult.
okay, but there's also more to it where it just says the city, in other words, in your case, Mr. Morrison, you're saying someone comes forward and asks for something. But what this is doing is allowing the council to make those exceptions even if no one has come forward. Okay? Because it says the city council may allow
I don't read that, sir.
exceptions.
I don't read that.
Well,
It says that the council would have the ability.
Where are you?
I'm reading on this.
I know,
whatever page
help
it-
me.
Other information and
You're in
It's in the cover,
section.
it's cover memo.
It
He's in the
says
cover
that
memo.
the
That's what he
council
said.
would have the authority to grant exceptions to any provision in the ordinance. The council would have the ability to specify that the exception could apply to an individual, one person that's asking for an exception, or a group of individuals,
Okay.
businesses, or
Here's
similar
the-
water users.
Here's the actual amendment, though, okay? This is not the cover letter, this is the actual amendment that would go into ordinance. And it says, "Be it ordained by the city of San Angelo, number 1, that Chapter 11, of the Code of Ordinances is hereby amended to read as follows. Section 11.204, exception and variance exceptions. The city council may allow exceptions to any of the provisions of this article." So it's saying, in that case, Mr. Morrison, it's saying you could allow the exception based on the fact that you know something and want to bring it in front of the council. You wouldn't even have to wait for a petition from an individual or a group of individuals or a representative of the group.
So one page that we have here says one thing, and then this says something
Well,
totally
this
different.
is the ordinance. This is the amendment, so it's what matters. Okay?
Well, then I pull my motion.
well,
Okay.
the amendment applies specifically to the subsection 1 and 2, which are the use of water for testing and repairing sprinklers, and water frequency for the second category for parks and athletic facilities. So if the council wishes to make an exception or place conditions on those, for example, those might be considered non-essential uses, the council can move forward to do that without waiting for action of any individual under the various provision. It's just allowing council to use the information that it has at hand to make exceptions to restrictions, prohibitions and restrictions relating to those two types of uses.
Go ahead. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking this is a mess. We've
No,
got two
it's-
different things here.
No, it allows you everything you want.
Now, I pull my motion.
Okay.
Now, when we were talking about an individual asking for an exception, or an individual representing a group making an exception, I've got no problem with that.
Those things are still available.
But that's not what this amended.
All right,
ordinance
no,
says.
those things are still available.
That's
This
in
just says you
addition.
can do
Hang-
something.
It's an addition.
Hang on. If you read Section A, exceptions, this is on the amended ordinance. The city council may allow exceptions to any of the provisions of this article. The article is the full conservation
No, it's for number 1 and 2 in this
Only for number
article.
1 and 2?
Yes,
So that's all we can change?
yes. That's what it states.
Watering frequency.
So where is it,
Then
where is
we've-
it talking
we've-
about individual or
We've
group?
written this thing wrong.
It makes
Because-
absolutely no sense. You got two different statements made on two different pages, and nothing ties together.
Okay, because,
Okay, relax, let them have their conference, let's talk. Let's-
Right.
okay.
To the article.
That would apply
Correct.
to any provision of
These are
the
additional.
ordinance, the entire water
article,
ordinance, or the water conservation ordinance that this is replacing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm good with that. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any of the provisions of this article?
Yes.
Anything in the drought contingency plan.
That's what, I mean, what I'm saying is, someone could bring it to your attention, you have permission to move forward. Someone can bring it to your attention for a group of people. You have permission to move forward. You could learn it on your own, and you would have the ability to move it forward. It's the broadest amount of permission you could get, okay? Now, it moves on to say, not only does the council have the ability to allow those exceptions, but it moves on to say there shall be an exception to the prohibitions on the use of water for installing, testing, and repairing sprinkler systems. So we would be saying that's okay, and we won't be revisiting it. We're saying it's okay to use water for installing, testing, and repairing sprinkler systems, and it's saying it would be okay. The watering frequency and schedules for public parks, athletic facilities, schools, colleges, and cemeteries shall be as approved by the city council. So if we want to allow that, we would allow it. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve it as the amendment as presented. Okay, now, questions. Ms. Farmer.
I do have a question. I understand what the motion is saying and what our city attorney is saying, but I do think it's a little muddy that it says watering frequency and schedules for public parks, athletic facilities, schools, colleges, and cemeteries shall be as approved by the city council. It's not being specific to outdoor watering, car washes, et cetera, and so forth, and I don't want any confusion on the public's part out there.
Yep.
That if we move to stage 3, we make this amendment trying to protect commercial businesses, but I don't want people to think, well, it's fine for me to wash my car in my driveway, because it's not. There's no outside watering in stage 3.
Just to clarify, item, on the amended ordinance, or amended the revision here, the only thing it's adding, all the line items I just read, the city council may approve exceptions to any provisions of this article. The council may place conditions on any exception. That is the only new part for this paragraph, okay? All the other stuff was already there. So all we're doing is basically adding the provision where we can provide an exception.
And outside watering is disallowed under drought stage 3, clearly, unless council takes an action.
Unless we make an
Says it's
exception
okay.
to that, right?
The prohibitions.
Mayor,
Right.
Yes.
unless you make an exception
That's
to it,
correct.
what it falls under watering frequency.
That's correct.
Or the
Right.
schedules that you're
It would
talking
go.
about.
It would go by what drought stage 3 says. You cannot water outside. You cannot water an athletic field. You cannot water a park. You cannot water unless council said, we want to approve. It's rained 3 inches. We've decided to approve for the next 90 days this kind of watering schedule, or that kind of action. So that's what it's saying. It doesn't change the fact that you can't water. It just says you have the ability to change that if you want to.
I see a question mark.
I'm sorry.
Are you clear? I mean,
No.
Mayor, could I?
I want to hear from the
I can run
public
at it.
before I vote,
yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely hear.
because I
from
want
the
to know
public.
if they're understanding what we're conveying
Where's
here.
that?
Now let's, I think we clarified that, this is not, what they need to be commenting on here. Let me get to that point.
Give her the
It's all right.
It's
Don't want it to go crazy
Is that what
here.
you're saying? I mean, is that what you say?
I'm saying that there'll be a time when we need to talk about these specifics.
Right.
Okay? But this is not it.
Not the ordinance.
This is simply to say, we can talk about it and we can make the exceptions at a later date.
But not today.
But I think we should allow them to make the comments, right? at a different time.
For our later day vote.
Yeah.
Correct. They came, we need to hear them, but it's not pertaining to this.
Okay, I got you.
I'll read it.
All right, are there any other questions? Or I mean,
I
really
have a
what it
thought.
does is give you the most leeway you could
I have a
possibly
thought.
take.
I have a thought. Kendall, and this pertains to what Kendall just said. If I were in the audience and y'all tell me if I'm right on this, you have no idea what we're thinking about what your business, how we think about your business. You can't tell how we're going to vote on anything. And so you're going to come up here and you're going to state your case, and you're going to do it for the full 5 minutes. They're going to each do that because they have no idea what we're thinking. And so I just want us to proceed with caution, because we could be here a long time, could be, when we can't do anything today. Because we haven't taken a vote, but if we pass this, we have to have a second reading, and then we can do something. Then we can have discussions about, well, I know that the indoor pool at the YMCA is not going to evaporate much water. Okay, I think it should be exempt, any indoor pool. Okay, I can say that, and y'all can say, yeah, we all agree. And then Pete Terry from the YMCA doesn't have to stand up and give his spill. You see what I'm saying? It saves time because they know how we're
I
thinking.
understand you. Now, the only thing that we have to decide is whether council. Hi,
Yes.
Ms. Bowling. You know, you're supposed to be commenting on the item that is on the agenda, okay? And so what I'm after for the moment is how are we going to allow item 30? Okay. Okay, let me read. Okay, yes,
Yes.
item 30. Guys, let's move 29 forward. It allows us the most
Yes.
exact,
got a
and then
motion and a
let's go to
second.
30.
30.
Okay.
Okay.
Item 29, I have a motion and a second allowing us to amend this drought ordinance, and that is exactly what you want, so that you can deal
Yes.
with their problems. So, because for the moment, you can't, and so we got to move
I
this
got it.
forward to then deal with their problems. All right, I'm calling for the vote on 29. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now, you have a second reading on that item at the
Okay,
next,
yes, we're
at the
covered.
next
I'm on
meeting,
29.
and that's giving you permission then to do the rest of what you want to do. Item number 30 is the consideration of adopting a resolution implementing drought level 3 of the city's water conservation and drought contingency plan. And we have a presentation by Water Utilities Director Will Wilde.
In our plan, there are different trigger points established for management of our water supplies based upon the available amount of water from the developed water sources that the city has at its disposal and use there. That taking into consideration what is the needs, what are the supplies available. And looking at those, we evaluated the criteria this past Friday, and the amount of water available against what we project the needs over the 12 months was not adequate to meet those needs for the 12 months. Therefore, the trigger point for drought level 3 was met, and we're bringing to you today the resolution for the council consideration for implementing of that water supply stage.
Okay, I think it's very important, Mr. Wilde, so I want you to walk us through what are the inputs that are allowed, and what are the things that could happen over the next 12 months that are not allowed when you're saying we have 12 months worth of water. Okay? So Ivy is...
As far as that, in evaluating, first of all, the supplies available, we look into what are our current sources that are developed and on the line that we can utilize. At the current time, OH-Ivy is our primary supply. We can depend upon about 12 million gallons of water a day from that source from now through roughly June of next year. The other sources we have available are Twin Buttes Reservoir and Lake Nazareth at this point in time. Our other sources, O.C. Fisher and Spence Reservoir, do not have any water available to us at this point in time. So looking at those three sources, Ivy, Lake Nazareth, and Twin Buttes, are considered in what are the amount of water we can utilize from those sources over the next 12 months here. So bottom line then, our next step is what is the supply, what is the need for the city over that next 12 months. In looking at that, we take into consideration as we move into the winter time, the need is going to be reduced. As we move into next summer, if we're under the drought level 3, that need is going to be a lot lower under drought level 3 than it was this past year. So we project the need through the winter months at about 9 to 10 million gallons per day. Through next summer, we would be then up in close to the 12 million gallons per day until Ivy goes offline. Once Ivy goes offline, then we're down to really how do we manage what's left in the local lakes, and we drop that need back down to around 9 million gallons per day at that point in time.
Okay, sir. And Mr. Wilde, are you including normal rain, no rain? What are you thinking on as it pertains to rain over the next 12 months?
The projections are based upon the very worst case scenario of no rain, no runoff into any of our local water supplies during that point in time.
So when you say we're within 12 months of the time we would run out of water, that's with no rain, no runoff.
Has to be based
over
upon the
next
very
12
worst
months.
scenario.
Okay. And the next thing that I would ask you is, you know that we're building a pipeline and trying to bring water here from Hickory Aquifer, but that is not in your calculations, correct?
That's right. At this point in
Because
time,
it's
it's
not a
not,
proven
because it's
water
not
source.
a source that is on Vine that we can turn to. Certainly when it becomes available next year, we will start including that as an available source to the city.
Okay. Sometimes in the winter, we have spring flow that helps, and so is that part of your consideration or not?
At this point in time, it isn't, because all of the inflow we've seen coming into the reservoir over the last 2 years has been released by downstream senior water right calls for that water.
Okay, thank you. So it's proven, and so right now you're looking at Ivy, Twin Buttes, and Lake Nasworthy.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions for him? Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, at this point, we would need a motion to adopt the resolution implementing drought level 3, but for purposes of education, let's go ahead and open up to public input and listen to the things that you would want to pursue possibly at the next meeting as it relates to the things that drought level 3 is concerning the citizens about. Okay?
Just a thought, I mean, do you want to group it kind of how it was?
Thanks. I'll sure try. Thank you.
2 other items I'd like to add as part of the resolution. The implementation date for this level 3 is proposed to be October 2nd, which will give time for the public notice we need to place in the paper for implementing the drought level and allow that public awareness to know that it's coming there. The second is the additional charges associated with the billing would become effective with the November 1 utility statements. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm putting this together with car washes first and with swimming pools second, okay? And then with what I'm going to call large water uses along the lines of irrigation, like a golf course or anything, a large piece of land. So let's start off with the car washes, okay? So if you're here to talk to us about car washes and the impact of drought level 3 on car washes, I invite you to come up here and talk to us about car washes. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Bobby Lou Allen, the owner-operator of Auto Paradise Car Washes. And while I don't claim to speak for all car washes, I do represent a large majority of the car wash capacity within the city, and a lot of those owner-operators are in the audience behind me. As we talked at the last council meeting, we want to really approach this issue from 2 directions. One is that we are members of the community as well. Our kids go to school here. We raise our families. So yes, we're operators, but we're also citizens that are concerned about this issue and are really trying to drive ways that we can conserve water and survive the drought as a community as well as a business. So as a business, part of the information that we provided last time and in subsequent meetings is that the car wash industry, even though it is called out in drought stage 3, is not a large user of water within the community. It is estimated that car washes are normally just 0.2% of the daily water demand within a city. We even say if you multiply that times 2.5 times and say we're 0.5%, you could shut down all the car washes in the community for the next 6 months, and you still would not gain 1 day of water supply for the city. And that's assuming that everyone followed your order. which we know is not necessarily the case, that you will see people washing their car in their driveway or on their lawn, etc. So assuming everyone complied, you still wouldn't gain the city a tremendous amount of water. The second thing is that we are very active in conservation already. A lot of us have already implemented actions where we capture, reuse, reclaim, high efficiency nozzles, eliminate certain actions. But we know that we can do more, just like every citizen and every other business. So we submitted last time from our association a program of suggested activities and how much water should be used in general for each type of car wash within a city. So self-serve, conveyor, in-bay automatic. So we would request that the city council review those and take those under consideration when you're looking to amend the ordinance or take exceptions for the ordinance in future meetings, October 2nd. Thirdly is that we do represent quite a bit of economic activity within the city. While we employ somewhere probably in 150 to 200 people, somewhere, that's an estimate, we impact a lot more than just those 200 families. There are a lot of people, whether they're plumbers, electricians, the people who take care of our waste, the soap, the chemicals, all of the things that we spend locally would be negatively impacted within our local community. So with those comments, we would ask the council to consider amending the ordinance to give us some level of stability for planning, because the way it's currently written, if we do this by exception, we don't know from month to month, year to year, how to plan for our business as well as for the families that we support within the community.
Thank you, sir. Another car wash spokesman? Okay.
0.2%.
Well, that's what is estimated by his association.
Would you please help me with my math?
Does that mean, what,
10,000
million
acre feet is what we will consume indoors in our houses. 1% of 10,000 is 100, correct? Or am I wrong? Because 1/10 of 10,000 is 1,000, 1/10 of that is 100. So 100 acre feet is 1%. 0.2% is 20 acre feet. I've already researched one car wash is 9 acre feet a year. One car wash. So I need help with numbers.
Let's, if we use the 0.5, just to make it simpler math, is we were using the quotation of 18 million gallons a day. Obviously, Mr. Wilde just said that we would go down to something 10 million, but using 18 as the average that was published and quoted by the council, that 0.5 would be 90,000 gallons a day, which is well within what we believe.
Citywide?
Citywide.
For all car washes?
We're talking about per day.
Okay.
But it's our association, and I have the data, submitted the data from other cities, and it's less than 0.2 in most cities. We're saying multiply that by several times, and we would still, using the 18 million gallons per day figure that was quoted.
Okay, 100 acre feet a year is what you're telling me. That's what it is. You want to do the math on it?
I trust you. Matt.
90,000 gallons times 365. That's a full year. Somebody running math? Now you're in gallons. Now let's convert to cubic feet. Divided by 7.48. Now you're in cubic feet. Make it acre feet. So now you divide by 43560. And now you have the acre feet.
To be an acre foot.
And it's about 100, so it's about 1% of the water. 100 acre feet is 3 days of water, 4 days of water, 4 days of water. That's the math I'm getting.
So we will defer to your math. We were using what the association gave us and then doubled it. So
90,000.
Let's okay. I mean,
Okay.
you're.
I'm going to run those figures over and over. If I make a mistake, I will chime back in and say I made a mistake.
very good.
I have Mr. Llewellyn, I have a question for you. I think the last time,
Go ahead.
tell me where the number 120 car washes came from. Do we have 120 car washes?
120 employees
Employees.
in the car wash industry.
Oh, okay. I was,
There was a statement last time of about 120 car wash sites. I had heard at the water board, or the water council the previous Thursday, that there were 120 landscaping companies, so I don't know if there may have been some confusion there. But the last count that we could come up with were somewhere probably in the 40 to 50 range on car washes, but I'm not the right source to
now,
confirm that.
are you talking about like the different number of bays in a car wash, or the car wash itself? That mean
I think
40?
it's car wash locations. I could
Got it.
ask some of the guys.
Hey.
Stripes has 20-something in the.
We have 4 automatics and 1 autonomous.
Okay, so that number of being 40 is still is more than I could count in here in town. So
That's way more than I could
I'm
count.
kind
but
of trying,
anyway.
how many big
But I mean, I think you've got
How
to
many
try to do that for us.
automatic you drive your car through? How many car washes are there? You drive your car through it.
I have 3. Stripes has
Just
5.
start talking. Let's figure it out. How many car washes?
Mr. Alexander?
I need to know something.
Well, I understand, but let's not do this as
Okay.
a group exercise today.
Well,
Hang on, stay with me just a second. Let's let staff, through the water bill, just look and tell you, here's what they're using. You
Right
got
next
2
to it.
weeks,
Bingo.
Okay.
We have 2 weeks. We'll have this number
Okay.
figured out. I don't have to calculate it.
and then you just say, here's what the usage is, what do you want to do with it?
I like that idea.
Okay.
We have to know
The-
exactly what these numbers are to understand what we're doing to ourselves.
Okay, now let
and-
me
and how to
get-
handle this.
Let me get Mr. Hirschfeld in here. Mr. Hirschfeld?
The one question I'm going to have is that how many of those car washes, and I know we're going to come up with a number, but how many of them are using reclaiming water?
I don't know that number, but I can, when you say reclaim, I think the better
Recycling
question
the
would
water
be
that-
recapturing and
Yes.
recycling. I would go on a limb that every single car wash has taken significant actions to try to reduce.
I'm not
the
talking
water.
about changing the nozzle size, and I understand that. I'm talking about actually being able to reduce their consumption of
I
water
would
by
say
reclaiming.
easily 90% of the car washes capture their RO reject as a base, which when I did that, it saved me 30% of my water bill.
They're
So-
already doing that?
I believe that's how we get to the reduced usage.
No, but I'm saying if it's already being done, then the water bill includes that savings.
Yes.
That's why I believe that like we said, we are already aggressively conserving. Can we do more? Yes, the association gave us some suggestions and guidelines of saying go back and challenge to make sure that every wash is using this amount of water. So I think that we as a group have agreed that we're going to go back and challenge if there's more we can do. But we already believe that our industry is not a large user, and we can go back and calculate the actual data.
Water was free.
The data from the association. And we tried to be conservative and doubling it, to say
Okay.
that we were.
Charlotte came over and gave me I need, for public information purposes, I need to say that she was writing down some figures, and they're all right here. You can go online to www.swcarwash.org and get the same information. Now it's public. You see, it's public. It's privacy. I mean, what do you call it? Public Information Act rules, and we can't be talking necessarily among
Open Meetings
ourselves.
Act.
So I'm
And
telling
you're-
everybody.
You're doing well.
Open meeting
It is the
rules,
Open
sorry,
Meetings Act.
sorry. So I'm letting y'all know where to find what information she just gave me so that everybody can have access to it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, let me listen to someone talk about swimming pools. Okay, you guys did a nice job last time, and I'm basically describing what happens to a pool when it's empty, what can happen to a liner when it's empty, what can happen to the
Coping.
No, not the coping. Yeah, the plaster. What happens in a plaster pool, and that you put the integrity of the pool at risk in either case. And then there are the other issues of how much water is it and the solar panel. The one thing that I still think should possibly be part of this is the solar panel issue, because I think it would help with evaporation. What do we know, anything further about that chemical that's supposed to help with evaporation? So let's make sure we talk about that a second. And Mr. Bankster, please go ahead, you're up there, and then right behind him, maybe you could come up, okay?
Bob Bankster with the Roadway Inn. I did a little figuring out of water usage for refilling a swimming pool. With 200 gallons a month that equals .007 acre-feet of water to maintain the pool level.
Where'd you get your 200 gallons, okay?
I figure 50 gallons a week the most,
But how did you figure it?
just a guesstimate.
I have
Okay.
I have somebody chiming in via email from yesterday. They say it's going to take 1,500 gallons from experience, because he's trucked it in, I think, from other cities. I can't read it fast enough to tell you how many that is per week, but he had to truck it in and keep his pool level even. It was another climate, but still, it's telling me
Per year,
per
1,500?
month. I said, hey, if I gave you 750 gallons a month, can you maintain your pool? He said no.
Okay.
It's going to take 1,500 gallons, is what he says. Hey, I'm just
Again-
saying, we got to get our numbers.
Yeah,
Just
no, but I mean,
continue.
again, the deal is that we have to do this on a data-driven basis.
No, that's
So
fine.
let's get the data.
But also understand that if we let the pools dilapidate and go down, with just the number of commercial pools in town, at 22,000 gallons average of water, that's 1.8 million gallons of water that's going to go back in the pools. That's 7.26 acre-feet of water.
Well,
That's a lot of
I
water.
understand. If you have it, it's great. So,
But once we get out, if and when we come out of stage 3, then people are allowed to fill their pools
Sure.
in stage 2, and we're going to deplete the water that we got back to go out to fill pools and things of that nature. Okay, I'm basically trying to protect my asset and protect what I've already paid for. I'm surprised that there's not more hotels here advocating for it, but I know my number one asset is my swimming pool at my hotel, and I need to maintain it. So that's why I ask.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
a comment that I was able to buy a house in Bentwood because the house had a pool that cracked, and they couldn't sell the house. So they finally just said, we'll just take out the pool because it can't sell the house. So they took it out and sold it for something like $52 a square foot in Bentwood in 2004. I got that house cheap because of that swimming pool falling apart. And that's what worries me, is that you can really damage the value of houses when the swimming pools start falling apart. They're not possible to repair easily. Sometimes they're not possible to repair. So I think that we could have a pretty big economic dent put into our home values if we just allow them to crumble. It becomes a liability to have a pool for sure. And it's not a small one, it's a pretty big one.
Thank you. Sir, would you come and help me with that evaporation number? And I'm going to ask you a couple other questions, and Mr. Abbott, maybe you guys could double team this, and okay. And but let's talk about this a second. One of the things that I'm wanting to understand is it's really the evaporation rate and the splashing rate, right?
Yes.
That determines how much water you're going to put back in.
Yes.
Right?
d-
Okay, and is there a
names.
standard size of?
Make sure they say their names.
Okay, I will. I will.
Okay.
They haven't started talking
Okay.
yet. Okay. Let's,
keeping everything legal.
I want you to walk us through what you, is there a standard size residential pool, most common, more something? But we've got to be able to do this as data-driven as possible. So I'm looking for help on data, okay? Okay. So go ahead and please say your names and then start helping.
Craig Hill, owner-operator of Hill Pools.
Tobin Abbott. I'm the area manager of Southwest Pools and Spas here in town.
Okay. Okay.
Your average backyard swimming pool is going to be a 16 by 32, 20,000 gallons. We're going to call that average.
Yeah, I would say
16 by 32.
Okay.
The chemical you were asking about a while ago is a chemical that forms a molecular level on the pool to cut down evaporation.
Right.
It's very simple. It's 4 ounces per week per 20,000 gallons. So your average swimming pool, you're going to put 4 ounces a week in it. It's going to cut the evaporation rate by 85%.
85%.
85%. It's printed. I meant to bring a bottle with me, and I forgot it, but it's printed on the bottle. Your solar blankets, anything you cover on a pool, your pool floaties, a tarp, anything is going to cut evaporation. What we're asking, or I guess, is if we do our part in educating our customers with the evaporation, we're wanting to do a blanket exception for maintaining the water in swimming pools, the
Right.
water level.
Okay. Next
Just with
question.
some quick calculations, your average pool, 16 by 32, when you lose an inch of water out of that pool, that's 300 gallons.
And you do you both service pools as well as building? Okay. And you put 2 inches, 3 inches, 5
Average,
inches?
inch and a half a week.
Okay.
That's without any kind of evaporation conservation. That's an open pool with nothing on it.
Oh, well.
Okay.
More in the summer, less in the
More in the summer, yes.
Less in the
Your
summer.
evaporation rate, I'm sorry?
600's the average, 600 gallons.
300.
300.
300. An inch of water in your average pool is 300 gallons.
600 gallons.
300.
I know. 2 inches, 600 gallons.
Yeah.
So yeah, 450, inch and a half. Thanks.
Will, is that consistent with your
319 is what I got.
inch and a half a week?
Oh, best an inch. What? Wait.
Evaporation rate's about inch and a half a week in any body water, right?
Yeah, they're the same. I mean, they're close.
Oh, it's 62 inches.
I
a
use
year.
2 inches. Okay.
The math's easier.
But I use 2 inches just so the math's easy and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. And 600 times 50 weeks or it would be your number. So, but anyway. Okay, that is good data. The product you talked about, a solar blanket. What is what's the ability? I don't think it's that critical now. And I'm sorry for monopolizing this. Y'all are pleased, but what is your ability starting May of next year? If the council was looking at it along the lines of it's a requirement that there's a solar cover, or it's a requirement that there's coverage of some sort, or that kind of thing. I think that's the kind of thing that in the winter makes less sense, but something that we probably need to be moving toward if we're going to give some kind of blanket exception on pools. That we're basically saying if you have a blanket exception, you are doing the things it takes to reduce usage. And so I think you ought to be spending some energy on what that ought to be, what's reasonable, all of those kinds of things. And somehow I think we have to have more than the guy that manufactures the product telling us that it cuts down 85% of the evaporation. I think there has to be a real data-driven process there to help us know if we believe that.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Anyway, is there other stuff y'all want to make sure we know?
I think there are, and we have not, I have not done as much, I guess information-wise, of finding out, pool companies in Arizona, places like that do, and I do need to do more of that. I mean, we're not the only ones that have gone through this, obviously. There have been other places that have too, and so even recapturing rainwater and being able to use that in a pool, and there's many different things there that I guess just kind of like y'all have through the history is just not getting our hickory aquifer and going and all that. I mean, with these kind of conditions force us to start thinking more of things like that, and I think that is some more that we need to possibly do too. Like I said, I think our main thing right now is just it's the investment, at least for homeowners citywide right now. Not, I mean, as a pool builder, I can't fill a pool. I mean, as soon as we go to this, I can't fill a pool anyway. I realize that. I mean, we've already hurt that part as far as business wise, but it's really kind of, we're looking right now as far as trying to protect or help the homeowners.
Yes, sir.
Maintain what we already have in place.
Yes, sir. Do y'all have questions for them? I think he gave us some data we can use.
I have the National Weather Service evaporation data from 2010 and 2011. In 2011 we lost 121 inches. That's phenomenal because the average is more like 62. But I have it. It's a graph. It looks like our electric bill, and I think it can be distributed to us. But you're looking in the summertime at about 12 inches of evaporation. Before you use that pool, March through May, it looks like about 8 inches. September is going to be 8, October 7, November 6. You kind of get the idea. We can figure this out.
That's it. The same thing. Be
And
data
when we
driven.
have to use this chemical, when we don't,
Well, I
things
think
like
the
that.
chemical's a real problem because how does a code enforcement guy go up and they say, I put that in there, and you go,
Right.
Well,
you did or you
and I don't
didn't.
know. I mean, I guess it's up to code enforcement. It's the same thing with the swim. I mean, it's a little harder to tell if they've got a cover on a pool than they do if they're water in the front yard.
Yeah, those things are hard.
Right.
So,
I realize there
anyway,
are a lot
okay.
of different issues there, but.
Okay. Well, is there anything else? I think we've learned some things. Kind of a standard size pool a little bit more about the product on the molecular level of how it tries to do its work. The solar blanket and anything else that's covering the surface and those kinds of things, how many inches per week and so forth. So
Well, one of the things that we can do when we're looking at, whatever we want to say on that, I looked at the San Antonio one, and I know it says, I believe it's 25% of the pool surface has to be covered with something, and that's where they had said that the inflatables and such like that counts
Right.
for that. So to me, that's where we might want to take our model from, is some of the other cities that have already done that type thing. And that was even in their strictest drought contingencies.
thanks. That's great. Great input. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Craig, tell me one more time, a standard pool, 16 by 32, holds how many gallons?
20,000.
20,000 gallons. Is that making math easy?
Okay, other questions? Thank you all very much. Okay.
As into about the code enforcement and the chemical that you're speaking of, I didn't use that chemical. I didn't know it was out. At the last council meeting, I went and I bought a bottle of it and started using it. You'll be able to tell, because when you put the chemical in the water, that shield that it provides over top, you could actually see the water swirling in the bottom of the swimming pool. Where before, all you see was the water coming out of the jets at the top of the pool. Now you can see the water swirling at the bottom of the pool.
Okay.
Other things that we can do on commercial pools to help save money and water is we can restrict the hours. I'm all for closing my swimming pool. I spoke to ownership about it and told them, this is what we really need to pay attention to and do. Only opening our pools from Memorial Day to Labor Day, which is our peak season. Throughout the rest of the year, maintain it at a level, keep the chemical in it for the evaporation, lock the gates, and just put it, and educate the consumers and let them know. So, there's things that we're willing to do on our side to help in the conservation effort and not lose our assets and the money we already have in water that we've purchased from the city. So,
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you very much. Is there someone here that wants to talk about landscape or, come on up, come on up.
Appreciate the opportunity to come through here. I go back to the 57s when it was really dry, and when
Mr. Ortega, state-
It really rained a lot that year, so I
State
want
your
you to bring
name.
it.
Give us your name.
when the pecan trees at Network.
Mr. Silvas is asking you to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. I've got two hearing aids here. Nicolas Arteaga, and I've gone through some real harsh experiences throughout my years. And from 57, the Nesworthy Lake trees were drying, and they were bringing water from Sonora in tanks to keep the trees at Nesworthy Lake alive. Okay, what I have in mind is going to be very short, and I'll be leaving here pretty quick. I was reading the paper where we can get penalized at 10,000, above 10,000 gallons, residential use. Okay, in my house, I have 18 trees, and they're the only ones I worried about. And so I do the drip irrigating on the trees, drip, very, very light, just to keep them alive. And I can get by with 8,000 instead of the 10,000. Because if I go and use, according to my billings that I get, if I go and use my 10,000, well, I'll be out there with a water hose just running it all over. And of course, we have an average house, pretty big, about 2,500 square footage, and 2 beds, and we have a washing machine that my wife is just crazy about using it every day. So we use a lot of water, but we can live within 8,000, not 10,000, because 10,000 is a lot of water for me. And I don't want to pay either because of the high price of water. But take in consideration, instead of the 10,000, make it 8,000, and I'll be more than happy to go along with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Joseph Doobie. I live in the 3600 block of Shady Hill Drive in Twin Oaks. Primary purpose for coming today is asking for an exemption, and I believe Councilman Alexander mentioned it in the last meeting that I saw in the paper. I was out of town, but where we live, it's very fragile, I guess, the land that we have up in that area of town.
And where, say the
I
address.
live on Shady Hill, the 3600 block, and it's a pretty deep slope there. When I first moved in, my neighbor watered too much. I didn't water enough. He suffered severe damage to his house. I had small fracturing in my foundation. We had to replace, I don't know, 30, 40 tiles throughout the house. The builder, who is Tony Jones, and he could probably speak to this better than I could about the conditions there. But if it's got to be watered just right. And he put in some stuff to help us with that, gutters and whatnot. He also told me you need the water every week, regardless of the time of the year. And that's where I really got bit in the butt, because I didn't water in the winter. I didn't think it was necessary. So the only exemption I'm really asking for is that you just allow people, whether it's everyone's side of town, I don't know how you're going to come up with that. The city manager, I'm sure, can figure that out, how much we should and shouldn't water. But if I don't water every week, I'll be looking for a new home. And secondly, as a public speaker, I've always been taught when you go to speak to people, you give them your, credibility statement, credentials. So my credentials speaking to you on this issue, I lived in a drought-restricted island, believe it or not, for 18 months on day on and day off water rationing. So this is nothing new to me. As a matter of fact, when I got here in 2000, not to criticize, but I was really astounded that the city was doing absolutely nothing then to prevent what's happening today. That's all behind us, but I would just ask that the city as itself would just do more to look at things that we can do going out. I'm in the process of spending $3,000 to xeriscape my front lawn, and I'll probably have to spend about the same in the spring to xeriscape my back lawn. And I have no problem with that, because we are where we are and we have to do what we need to do. So I applaud you at this point to do something, and I think our council members in the last couple of years have probably done so. I do want to leave this with you guys. Just, you like data, so it's not really data numbers, but just what happens when we don't use common sense in day-to-day stuff. Thank you for your time.
Why don't you just go ahead and hand that to Alicia?
Sure.
In April of this year, we did amend the Stage 3 to protect foundations, and so it is in the ordinance, sir, at this time, to protect foundations.
It's our ability to do so. We still have to specify
sorry?
it. It's our ability to do so. We
Yes.
still have to specify it. And that's part two.
Hand
of this
watering of
house.
trees and foundations.
Hand watering of trees and
Right.
the foundations with soaker hoses is,
A house that starts moving and shifting really loses a lot of value. And it's also, I think we need to be watching out for our economy.
Okay.
With just a little bit of water, we can sure save a lot of hardship, a lot of value out there.
Outstanding. Others that would like to talk about landscaping or home, come on.
Can I go back to the car washing for a second?
No, pass that. Come on.
No, my name's David Steely. I own Bob's Wash Service. I've been in business here since 1999. I work primarily for the car dealerships. I'm a mobile wash. That's just how I've been doing it for a very long time. I do have my own RO system at my residence. I'm averaging about 38,000 gallons a month. That's with my residence use too. I'm washing anywhere from 8 to 10,000 cars a month on 38,000 gallons worth of water. I've been told by Ms. Fox at the water department that that's excellent. That's way under what a lot of the other car washes are using here in town. I do try to capture.
I'm sorry, could you just say those numbers again?
I use about 38,000 gallons. That's what my bill
That's with your
average-
residential
Yes,
too?
that's with my
So
residential.
that's probably 28,000 or...
I'm going to say 30, somewhere in there. I probably use about 30,000. I use about 1,000 gallons of RO water a night. I love my job. I love this business. I know water is very important to our community. I know we're running out of it. There are many things we can do, though, if you have an RO system. Every gallon that you make, you're wasting a gallon on a regular RO system, even the small ones that are underneath your kitchen sinks. Now, there are steps if you have an industrial size like I do. I used to spend $500 to replace a filter. Well, I have 2 of them. It cost me $1,000 to service my machine. I'm spending $3,000 now to service that machine, but you know what? I don't have any wastewater coming off that line, not one bit. So there are steps that people can take with these RO units to save water to where you're not wasting the water. You know, I think that's very important. I do try to capture, like I work out at FedEx out at the airport, you know, once a week out there. Now the sitting water that's on their wash pad, I do suck it up. I try to reuse what I can, but I can't reuse. I can't suck up any water on the car lots. You know, I'm trying to do that, but it's almost impossible because I use such, you know, I'm only using 2 or 3 gallons to actually wash a car. You know, so it's kind of real hard to get that up off the ground and suck it up. I just wanted to kind of come up here and let you know what I'm doing and the steps that I'm trying to take, and you know that there are individuals that are trying to save water. We're trying to conserve as much as we can, and you know, do you guys have maybe any questions or?
How many vehicles was that?
He said 9,000
I do
average.
yeah.
He said 8 to 10,000.
I got you.
Somewhere between 8 and 10,000 a month. That's a lot of cars on
using
very little water.
roughly 30,000 gallons of
Yes.
water.
And now, before I made those changes to my RO system 2 years ago, I was using 60,000, 65,000 gallons of water. But I'm also working an extra 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours a night by just turning down my pressure on my power washer. You know, it takes me, I'm working an extra 20 hours a week. I'm not making any extra money doing that, but I'm saving 2, 3, sometimes 400 gallons a night. So, I mean, there are people that, you know, that some of us are trying really hard to to really watch what we use. You know, my neighbors see me filling up my tanks all the time and are asking me how much water I use, and, you know, they're concerned about it too, you know, but, you know, we're trying to do what we can, and, you know, I've been a very successful business for a long time here in town, you know, so I just want to keep working, you know, it's just my livelihood, you know, and it's just what I do. I'm real good at it, and I love my job, so I just thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on landscape or car washes or swimming pools? Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, is there anyone here that wants to talk about a golf course or another large piece of property?
My name's Kevin Collins. I'm from 2 Pro Management, and we have the golf course management contract with the City of San Angelo for Santa Fe Golf Course. One of the things I'd like to say is that we realize what situation we're in, but one of the things I thought I might like to point out to you guys is, number one, golf courses use about 75 to 80% of their water in about a 4-month period of time. It sounds like to me, I've been sitting here listening to all of the talk and you know, what our sources are and what we're working on and things of that nature. It seems like there's a possibility that there might be some room for compromise in some areas. At this point, for the next 5 months, Santa Fe Golf Course will be using very little water to keep just the greens alive. That's all that we would be asking to do, is to try to keep just the greens alive. It would be about 20,000 gallons per month is all it would take to keep them alive during this 5-month period. Now, obviously, once you hit March, it's a done deal, and there's no question, and we agree with that. There's not anything that can be done. But just for y'all's information, you know, when we redid those greens a couple of years ago, the price has gone up a little bit to replace them. So if we had to replace the greens down there, it would be about $2 per square foot. We've got about 40,000 square feet of green space down there at Santa Fe Golf. And so you're looking at a cost of about $2 per square foot to replace those once they die. And then, of course, the water costs associated with growing those greens back in, which we had in our deal with the city the last time we did the greens renovation. So it's a situation where if we have some possibility for some compromise, this is the time that we're going to be using the least amount of water. And it seems to me that rather than going ahead and cutting it off and killing them now. If there was some way that we could try to keep them alive for 4 to 5 months and see if it starts to rain again, it might be prudent to do that. The total amount of water that we would need, in our opinion, if it doesn't rain at all, would be somewhere around 300,000 gallons to keep them alive. I mean, it's not going to make them nice, it's not going to make them flourish, but they
Per
won't.
year?
No, for this next 5 months.
That's an acre foot, a
Per
little over
month?
acre foot.
Yeah, it's a little under an acre foot, actually. Yeah.
Oh, no.
It was 325,000.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's a little under acre foot,
Yeah.
so it's just right there.
So it's a situation where it seems reasonable to try to compromise in that way. Again, if it was June, there wouldn't be really much compromise opportunity there. So it seems to me that it might be worth compromising. A couple other quick points that you might think about when you're looking at this, and I know this is a very difficult situation for everybody, but one of the things that the TCEQ does with water right holders is it tells you how much water you have, and you can use it for that month. One of the things I would caution you about is doing it by the day, because one of the things that happens, if you give me 1 day to water, I'm going to pour it to try to save everything. Whereas if I have a certain amount that I can work with for a month, I'm going to use it a lot more wisely. And so it's a situation where if you're going to come up with some compromises, if you're going to give some opportunities for some exemptions, you might take that into consideration, because we can be a lot more conservative by using the irrigation systems. This gentleman made a point a minute ago about the irrigation systems. Our irrigation systems are calibrated to put out a certain amount of water, and if we know exactly when to put that water out, like at midnight as opposed to the middle of the day, we can actually save some water in that respect. The number that I gave you is figuring in the ability for us to water over about a 20-minute period of time twice a week in the middle of the night, when it's going to be the most effective for the water, as opposed to having someone stand out on the course and hand water throughout the day, because it would take a lot longer to do that square footage in order to do that. Just so you guys know, we spent about $50,000 to redo the greens when we did them a couple of years ago. If we get to a point, we already are at a point where a lot of the surface is going to have to be redone. We know that. Just for your information, it would cost about $200,000 to resprig the Santa Fe golf course in order to take what's gone and fix it. We do have a plan in place for doing some aerifying if it does start to rain. If we do have an opportunity to try to save it, we do think that a lot of it can be done if we get the water back. I know, and everybody in town knows, that it's a bad situation, but we do feel like that if there is some compromise, that during this 5-month period of time would be the only time that there might be a reason to compromise, because we can keep them alive while they're dormant by just watering them a very small amount of time. So
Tell me again, that was 50,000 gallons per month?
It's 20,000 gallons per month would be the minimum. In other words, realistically, I need about 2,500 gallons twice a week. Okay, if I bring it in a truck and pour it all on the green at one time.
For all the greens?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
2,500. It's 20,000 gallons per month will keep the greens alive from November to February. Okay, once you get to March, things start to grow, and that's part of the deal. If it depends on what we were looking at doing was trying to bring in 2,000 to 2,500 gallons per time, twice a week. Okay. And on a monthly schedule, and that's how we came to that figure.
Okay.
And that would the thing about that is it's not very that's not very conservation minded to do that either, because you're just going to pour it all on there at one time and hope for the best. Whereas if we had a way to mix it, we might even be able to do a little less if we were able to just do it a little at a time to make sure we can syringe them and keep them from failing.
Can you clarify for me, 2,500 gallons per week is per green?
No.
Per the entire course?
Not the entire course. What we have at
Just
Santa
the
Fe Golf
greens.
is we got 40,000 square feet of green.
Okay, 9 holes, Santa Fe.
Yes.
Equals about, it's 10,500 a month, 4.3 weeks in a month. You wanted it twice a week, though. 20,000, 21,000. Okay.
Yes. But that's assuming that we don't get much rain. Obviously, if it rains, we're not going to do it. But I just want to make sure that you guys recognize that coming in and pouring a big dump, and we did that. I don't know, when we had some issues earlier this summer, we actually brought in a water truck and saved them by doing that, but it's not a very efficient way to do it. You just put a lot of water on the ground and let it soak in and hope it doesn't die.
So you're saying about that comes out to about 2,200 gallons per green.
Not per green, no. It's 2,200 gallons.
I understand, but if you
per
take
month,
all that,
I'm sorry, yes, sir.
per month.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, about 2,000 gallons of green per month.
Okay.
That's bare minimum. You asked
Oh,
for-
that's, and I've got a little scale here that I can give to you guys, and I'd be more than happy to email it or however you want me to do it.
Of course.
But realistically, we've done it where it's 100% flourishing, 75% it's okay, 50%, at a 50% rate, we're just about to kill them, and if you get to 25%, they're dead. So
Okay.
we've got it figured out down to how much we need to do that, and I'll be more than happy to
And
email
remember,
it to
when
you.
we think about Santa Fe, we also think about Bentwood and San Angelo Country Club and Riverside. We think about all of them, and Quicksand we need to know. Is it
Well,
similar for
all
them?
of those courses have alternative sources of water as
Okay.
well. So it'd be hard to I don't want to speak for all of them. I'm here pretty much for Santa Fe because I believe that all the other courses have either wells or some other things that they can work
So
on.
they need to come to us separate and tell us they have a need in order for it to consider them, I suppose. Otherwise, we're allowing everybody to water when they have their own sources.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't know
Okay, I
for sure on
understand.
those guys,
It's a
but I
little
think that
different
most
situation.
places have water wells.
All right. Thank you. And yes, email the information. First name
Yeah, we
dot
can-
last name at sanangelotexas.us.
We can do that for you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other inputs on large pieces of property, golf course, park, things of that nature?
Back again, sir. I'm not asking for exemptions this time. My credentials earlier, I'd like to present more on the flip side. We have a lot of real estate in the city. I believe you made that note in the last meeting about how much the city uses itself for water. I'm a baseball umpire, and it kills me to see the amount of water that's poured on our city parks. I don't know if we need that much for the parks to continue to be green. I don't know if the parks need to be green at this point in time. I also work for a very large federal entity here in the city, so I won't speak too directly to that other than there are a lot of huge federal entities in this city that probably could not be watering as well. And I just think it's really time. I know that a lot of people need to survive economically. I don't want to see car washes disappear any more than the next guy. I know it's economic impact, but I think it's time that we just start using some common sense as to when we should be watering. I know my house, we were told to put in those little gauges so when it rains, the sprinklers wouldn't work. They don't work. We just paid $150 to install them. So I would just ask moving forward that you look at some of those things. Like the gentleman from Santa Fe is right. I know where we live, I'm on a slope. It's clay surface. If I use too much at once, which is where we're at right now, I talked to, Mrs. Fox, I think was her name. I guess we came to a gentleman's agreement saying she's the person that writes me up if I'm not watering properly. Water lasts more often and better times a day seem to work much better than watering once for 30 minutes and watch it all run down the street. So she educated me pretty well to that, and I just think it might behoove the city to start educating the citizens a little bit more too. We're not always proactive in going to the city website. When this all came about earlier in the year, I started researching xeriscaping for that reason. Unfortunately, I found more information in the city of Abilene's website, but it was easy enough to transfer here. So I was able to get a lot of good suggestions, but I don't know how the city can do that. I watch you guys most Thursday nights lying in bed. So for me, I get my information there. This is the first time I've really had a concern to bring to the council, but again, just from my time spent in a small little island with no water, it's better to act now than to have to really pay a more severe price later.
Okay. For education, because you're bringing it up, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask for some help here, but there is an implementation that has already started with the city that basically shuts down irrigation by the 1st of October. Okay? Answering your question directly.
Actually, Mayor, the sports complex is already shut down.
Okay. But anyway,
And the
so I
parks
just
have
wanted
been
to let
shut
you
down.
know that the city is taking all of this very seriously about its use. So we're we're shutting things down as we move forward.
I always know that, Mayor, because you're a great guy, and I trust your wisdom. Like I said, I watch you guys every week, and I really enjoy watching the city council now. So just a little kudos, because I believe you guys don't get that often enough. And I spoke to Mr. Silvis a couple weeks ago, and ran Councilman Alexander down at Walmart if I have to sometimes, only because I thought he was my district or my single member district, to find out it's Mrs. Farmer. But I appreciate all his time in dealing with me anyhow. And again, I just it plagues me, I guess, sometimes to see people don't realize the wasting water that happens. And I don't know if the common sense thing isn't always to charge more. You know, we tried that up north when I was there, and charging you more money to use water does not prevent people who have the money to pay for it to stop watering. And then there's plenty of things we can do even within houses, ceramic bricks within commodes. I mean, there's just a load of things, and I think the city might be better off spending some money, whether it be flyers or some way to get door-to-door information, than it would be to continually just charge more money for water usage. Because I think if you look at places that have been doing it, I'm not so sure if it pays itself off in the long run.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there more public input at this time? Okay. Thank you all very much for your input. Let's move forward then with item number 30. There's a consideration here of adopting a resolution implementing drought level 3 of the city's water conservation and drought contingency plan. Presentation was made by Mr. Wilde that we are at this point in that place. So I'm looking for a motion to adopt the resolution, or I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second. Is there any further question or comment from council?
I do have one question that
Sure.
pertains to our area out of North San Angelo. There's an aquifer of water in North San Angelo. North Concho Water Supply has his straws at the end of Cauley Lane. He's sending water to Quail Valley. He's sending it to Red Creek. He's sending it all over North San Angelo and North Tom Green County. And there's literally hundreds of families in North San Angelo and northern Tom Green County that depend upon this aquifer. The problem we're having right now is that if someone owns property over there, they sell the water. And we've got trailers that are running every day. I can think of a couple of places. We've got trailers that are running out there, filling up their trailers. They're running across town. They've got a motor on them and hoses, and they water all these trees, and they water grass, and they're getting around the once-a-week watering. But what they are doing is destroying an aquifer on North San Angelo. And my aquifer, my windmill quit working this week. So I know that the water has dropped 15 foot in my well. It's becoming a very serious problem. And if we adopt this ordinance and stop all watering of city water, and they come out and start pulling out of the reservoir in North San Angelo or the reservoir in South San Angelo, it's not going to be long, and that reservoir is going to be dry. And when that happens, there are going to be literally thousands of families in northern Tom Green County that's going to be drinking dust. So I've got mixed emotions on this, because to enact a drought level where it says they cannot water at all, they're going to be coming to North San Angelo and pulling water out of our aquifers. I'm cutting the throat of my own citizens when we enact this. So is there anything we can do? I know that the right of capture allows you to sell it if you've got it. But is there anything that we can do to prevent these people from hauling water and selling it? Is there anything that we can do to charge a fee to people that buy water?
Right.
I mean, if we're going to say no watering, that needs to mean no watering, period. And not no watering unless you can find someone that will sell it to you. So I've got kind of a unique situation here, I realize it, but when we destroyed that aquifer in North San Angelo to keep trees and bushes and grasses green somewhere else, or to fill swimming pools, we're destroying an aquifer that is going to literally affect thousands of families.
Okay, I don't know the answer to your question, or you ask, is there something? I sure don't know what that is, and you know, the two things that come to mind are staff thinking through some things, and I don't know if there's anything there, and the water master.
I guess what I'm saying is if we're going to say no watering under drought 3, that means no watering under drought 3. That means no watering from your city faucets. That means no buying water to find someone that will sell it to you and watering, but no watering under drought 3.
There can be some public health, welfare, and safety regulations that we are starting to look at, which would apply to the rule of capture issues of water that's accumulated, just like oil and gas would be under property, and we're going to explore the extent to which we as a municipality can regulate under the public health, welfare, and safety police type of regulations. And we're going to be we're just initially examining that based on a Supreme Court case that recently came out that clarified some rights that the city might have.
Well, that may work.
Recently, yes.
That it would be illegal to use untreated water. That way that will take care of the well water.
I really don't know.
Tell you, that's a
But anyhow,
slippery slope.
it's a serious problem.
Slippery
Ms.
slope
Farmer.
To me, in answer to your question, and I don't know that I'm right by any means, but it sure seems like that would be a restriction of free trade, free enterprise of every property owner and the American right to, sell what they own. I don't know.
And you're right. It's right of capture.
And that has been taken and challenged in the Supreme Court.
Right.
But my question and my statement was back to the motion. We're looking at a huge, tremendous decision, and whether to go to stage 3 and the amount of water in San Angelo. I know that the existing ordinance was written 20 years ago, and to my knowledge, it has never been enacted. San Angelo's never gone to stage 3, so we're in some uncharted territory. I personally would rather see us postpone a decision on stage 3 until staff has had the opportunity to come back with allowing us some 90-day allowances for car washes to continue and to top off swimming pools, not fill them up, just to top them off. I really feel like that should be addressed, and the separation of no outside watering, absolutely, and that means car washes at your residence, your property. But I'm not that quick after this is set on the books for 20 years, and I'm not faulting councils before me or staffs before existing staff, but dadgummit, this is something that should have been addressed before we absolutely had to make the decision. That's poor planning, in my opinion. And I would like to give council and staff just a little bit more time, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to work out some wording to give us the opportunity to say for the next 90 days we'll exempt, car washes or something of that nature. That's just my opinion from it, to kind of help the existing businesses out there.
Okay. My understanding of it is that you'll be able to do that at the next meeting, whether you put this in place or you don't. So, because you moved forward the ability to, through the amendment to the.
But if we put stage 3 into effect today, it takes effect October 2nd. Our next meeting's after that.
No, it's the 2nd.
It is the 2nd?
Yes.
First Tuesday.
I thought it was the 5th.
2nd.
And we can vote no on October 2nd to delay it. I don't know what happens to it. Do we have to go through 2 readings again to
Yes.
reenact it? That's our problem.
No, I don't.
But we can vote no and then have another reading, change it.
For the resolution, the Water Utilities Director has so advised you that we're at the stage of the trigger point. And so now by the resolution, you're taking action to implement the new drought level. There will be a process of public notice by newspaper publication that needs to take place. And then regarding the actual specifics on implementation, the Water Utilities Director then will initiate the public information component, and he will then advise on the specific action which can be looked at by you, that he's going to be advising the public, which will then go out to the media and go to our website.
But hear me out. Convince me, I'm sitting out there in the audience, convince me that this council will have that item on the agenda October 2nd to discuss. You know, things have a way of not getting on the agenda when they're requested to be on the agenda.
Hello.
It happens. And unfortunately, we're bound by the 72-hour that we can't.
My sense of it, sorry to interrupt, my sense of it is a little different than worrying about it being on the agenda. One of the things that Ms. Bowling just said that causes pause for me is if Mr. Wilde and the Public Information Office are out saying this will be effective October the 2nd, and here are the things that occur in drought stage 3, and then we come here October the 2nd and make any adjustments related to a swimming pool or an adjustment related to a car wash, he by law and by effort has already told them you can't have a car wash, you can't have outside watering, you can't. So how do we not
certainly wait? We've got the period that the resolution has to be published to inform the public that this is coming up, but obviously you could always adjust, and there's a continuing communication that can be put out to the media.
But I don't think, I mean, how can he say,
Well, then you
here's
should
drought stage
coordinate.
level 3, and here's what you can't do in drought stage level 3, and then we meet on the 2nd and say, except now you can do these things. I don't want him out in front of those decisions.
Well, there's no time frame. He could delay his notice, his specific notice. If you look at the ordinance, there's a section called public information, and it just describes the information that he is going to formulate to put out to the public, but it's going to be useful, and obviously it can be coordinated with the decision and things that you're looking at. He's not going to do that unilaterally or arbitrarily.
Will, one of the things that's required in my understanding for going to drought stage 3 is a public notice. One of the things that council appears to be concerned about is clear communication and a clear knowledge of what they're able to exempt. And so if we postponed this item and reconsidered it on the 2nd, what would be the earliest reasonable effective date? In other words, if we approved it on the 2nd, you'd still have to go to public notice and jump through those hoops. What would you suggest would be an appropriate amount of time to get that public notice done, and whatever other hoops you need to jump through in order for an effective date to be appropriate? Would you need a week beyond that? So if we postponed this item for consideration on October 2nd with an effective date on the 2nd of October 9th, for example, that would give Will a week to get his public notice done, and he could at that time communicate with certainty about what exemptions had been approved by council, because theoretically that ordinance amendment which allows council the authority to make those exemptions will be in place, and council will have had an opportunity to consider exemptions, and that picture will be completed.
Well, why not just approve it today and have an implementation date instead of the 2nd, the 9th, and then he withholds all of his notices until the 2nd, or we say it's the 10th or the 11th, whatever. I mean, it's inevitable, guys.
Or the 2nd meeting in October.
We're going to drought level 3. Does anybody not think we are? I'm saying let's get this thing going, and then you can withhold the implementation if you want for a little bit, and then have your notice period, and then the next meeting we'll have it. But
well, the notice needs to, I mean, you're making this point, but I mean, the notice, to me, the thing is, the notice can't say you can't do this, and then 5 days later say, but now you can do this. We need to wait, we need to have it be the 9th, the 10th, the 16th, something that allows us to get to the 2nd and make whatever adjustments we're going to make. So that when he says we're in drought stage 3 and here's what you can and can't do, it's clear what you can and can't do.
Mayor,
And-
can I clarify, the notice that's going to be published is just the resolution itself? That's the notice that's going to be published in the paper. And I think I emailed you the particular language.
I
Then-
did.
Okay, then public information, it states the Water Utilities Director will provide reports to the news media with information regarding the current water supply conditions, projected water supply and demand conditions if the current drought conditions continue, and consumer information on conservation measures and practices, information describing each water stage trigger point and drought level restrictions on water use shall be prepared and published on the city website. So it could be ongoing. There's no time requirement. We know that after the resolution is passed today, the resolution has to be published in the newspaper.
The last part you said is the part I'm hung up on,
Okay,
Ms. Bowling.
It's
Where it says he would put on the website the restrictions related to each drought stage level. And I'm saying what's in place right now is not what I think the council is going to have in place with drought stage 3 if we make any adjustments. I don't want someone to see that, okay, drought stage 3 is here, they go on the website and it says, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't
And
do
he
this.
could wait until-
Close down my car wash, do this or do that. He can't say anything differently until the council says.
Right, and so he could, what I'm trying to say is that he could wait until the council makes a decision and then put the information out. There's no time requirement for that specific information.
Okay, I thought you said earlier that he had to put information out ahead of.
The resolution is published in the newspaper.
Okay.
But then the public information component that he will provide reports, but it doesn't mean that he can't wait until after the first council meeting.
Okay, we're still not really in agreement. Because I wouldn't want to tell the public, we're going into drought stage level 3, but don't tell them what that means. I mean, it's got to be, we're going into drought stage level 3, here's the date that it's effective, and here's what you can and can't do. I don't.
Okay, well, that is.
So, even though you wouldn't be required to, I think you have to.
Right, so either then you would have to postpone the resolution, publishing the notice of it, to then be in step with the public information component that's put out. You would just have to, instead of just having a waiting period.
Yes, ma'am.
You could just do it simultaneously.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm kind of with Ms. Farmer. I mean, what is a couple more weeks for us to gather more information on even the usage of some of these folks are having? I mean, I don't want to rush things. I know we're in dire straits, but I'd rather get numbers, of what is happening out there for real. So I'm with you that if we can wait a couple more weeks, we can. I don't think we're going to go dry and.
We've waited 20 years. What's 2 more weeks?
Has there been a motion made yet?
Yes.
Yes, motion and a second to approve it as.
Can it be amended to start on November 1?
Not in my motion.
Not in yours, okay.
Okay, but it could be amended to start on October the something to get us past a couple of these things, but, okay. Now, I'm just trying to listen to you all at the same time. I would think that the appropriate way to do this is we talk today, we need to be able to come back and make the changes to the ordinance on the 2nd. I would like to see us adopt the resolution where we adopt it on the 2nd and the 16th, and it's effective the 16th. And we would know on the 2nd what we've made, whatever changes we've made, so that when he's telling everybody, here's what you can do, it would be effective on the 16th. We would have had time to make whatever decisions we're going to make, and so to me, that's the way we would move forward. It would be the next 2 council meetings.
That sounds good to me.
All right, I'm going to make that. I'm going to rescind my first motion, make a motion that we table this and consider it again on October the 2nd with the goal that we get this implemented by October the 16th.
I'll second that motion.
Well, okay. So I have a vote to table that we would then put this in place October the 2nd, making it effective October the 16th with whatever changes we make to the drought stage level 3 through the amendment process on the 2nd, okay? That's
I'm comfortable with that.
That's what I'm after. All right, let's take a vote on the table. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay. Okay. I think we're kicking the can down the road.
Okay, very good. Okay, we need to get this done on the 2nd, implemented on the 16th with the changes that we make. Okay.
Will gave me the nod. That's very good.
Okay. Okay, let's take a short break and then get back in here and start talking about pay. Getting back to order, it's item number 19, pay and classification study update, and a discussion of methodology and approval of pay increases for city employees.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Last year at the August 30th meeting, the council asked that HR staff come back with an update to the compensation plan, the benchmark data, and to present it at a future date. That is quite an undertaking to redo and resurrect the entire study, and we were very fortunate to have a graduate student from ASU who volunteered to come in and work unpaid to assist us with extrapolating some of the data. If you bear with me, I've got 4 slides here at the very beginning that just gives you a little bit of background on pay and classification to kind of be helpful in some of the terminology that we'll be discussing today. What's also known as classification and compensation. Pay and class is really a universal HR tool that we use to structure positions, and we base those on specific job factors. And those include some of the items that are listed there: the complexity of the work, what are the consequences if a person makes a mistake in their position, how much money are they responsible for, what are their job duties, etc. Then jobs are grouped together based on how closely those job factors match. Each group is then assigned a pay grade, and that's based on market rates for those particular job factors. Then each pay grade has a pay range based on what the market is, and the pay range has a minimum, a midpoint, and a maximum salary. We actually compare midpoints when we're talking about doing a pay study. And the reason for that is that the ranges for particular jobs can vary in width from minimum to maximum, but the midpoint is going to be consistently the middle of that range. And in the example here, you can see that with these 3 different employers for a specific job, all of them have different pay ranges varying in widths, but the midpoint stays consistent. What happens in these situations are, throughout the span of those ranges, employees are sprinkled throughout between the minimum and the maximum. So the average midpoints are what we look at, and in that last example, 40,000 was the average for those 3 jobs. And in an example, let's say if the City of San Angelo midpoint is 30,000, then the San Angelo midpoint in that example is at 75% of the average. Okay? So that's what we're talking about today. The original pay and class study that we're talking about was performed back in 2007 and 8. In both 2008 and 2009, we made adjustments to the pay ranges, and we gave salary increases as a result. You've asked that we've update the study, and that was done during the months of June and July of this year. We invited 13 cities to participate. There were 4 that chose not to submit data, and those were Beaumont, Temple, Tyler, and Waco.
Lisa, did they state why they wouldn't share information? Or?
They just chose not to participate. It's a very busy time of year when everybody's doing budgets, and it's a pretty comprehensive study, so I'm not surprised that we got turned down. Originally,
Ms. Marley, how big is Colleen?
I beg your pardon?
How big is Colleen?
Well, Well, let me get that data out. It is one of our comparable cities. $130,000.
Okay, thank you.
And these original 13 cities were the ones that were used the first time around in our study. And the first time around in our study, there were 223 jobs that were compared. And so those same 223 titles were compared with these 9 cities. In 2008, the pay ranges and salaries that fell below 85% of the average, those were raised to 85%. And then the council asked us in 2009 to move all of the ranges up to 90%. However, that year, we only had funding that would support movement up to 87% of the ranges. Or I'm sorry, 87% of the midpoints. At that point in time, all 39 of the pay ranges were at least at 87% or higher of the surveyed cities. Here's where we sit in 2012, with 3 years behind us since the last time we adjusted the ranges. 3 of our grades fall between 65 and 69% of the average. 12 are between 70 and 79. 10 are between 80 and 86. And 14 are at 87 or better. So in the 3 years since the last time we adjusted the ranges, 25 of the 39 pay ranges have fallen off the mark from where we were 3 years ago. And this affects 429 employees with very heavy concentration in the lower pay grades. And I have a scale here. It's a little difficult to read, but the point being that the blue markings indicate how many employees are in each of the grades. The grades are located at the bottom of the screen and run from left to right, lowest to highest. And then the survey data telling you what the percentage of the midpoint is the vertical on the left-hand side. So you can see that in the lower grades, those listed to the left, where all the big blue lines are, that's where our concentration of employees lie. Now, if you look at the 80 line, you can see where the grades are that fall above 80 and where the ones fall below 80. So it truly is a concentration of the lower grades.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
The graphs that you're showing us was not included in our packets. I, for one, would just appreciate the information in advance so I have more time to study it.
Sure.
And have smarter questions to ask the day of. I just would prefer to receive this information in advance.
I understand.
Thank you.
So the low salaries obviously impact obvious things: recruiting, retention, and morale. We presently have 46 vacant positions with the city, and 26 of those vacancies are in pay grades that fall below 80%. And if you look through the listing here of some of our vacancies, you can see that they're titles that we're all familiar with, ones that we talk about from time to time: our code compliance officers, our animal control people, our admin assistants, our fire drivers, our paramedics, LVNs, light equipment operators, heavy equipment operators. So they're all in positions that are really critical to our day-to-day functions, and we're having extreme difficulty in filling these positions. So is there some sort of a fix that we can do? Council at the last meeting with the budget approved a 3% equivalent pay increase across citywide. The funding that that 3% represents, we could use to actually do one of 2 different scenarios that I presented here today. The discussion at the last meeting was to award a 3% average merit increase for all employees, or for some employees at a particular salary cutoff. That would be one choice, or the second choice would be to bring the applicable pay ranges up to 80% of the survey and apply the remainder of the funds at a 1.25% merit increase for those who meet or exceed expectations based on their performance. I've met with budget, and we have enough money based in the 3% that was approved in the budget to be able to bring those ranges up to 80 with your permission to do so. Our recommendation would be to solve the problem. Let's fix the ranges and not try to treat the symptoms by just giving out merit increases. That would be our recommendation.
Okay, questions?
What would be the dollar amount on fixing the ranges? Is it what we have budgeted?
Yes.
How much was it? What was the dollar amount?
Well, the dollar amount's different in different places, okay? In the general fund, it was $550,000
That's
for
what I
most people and $327,000 for meet and confer. But that doesn't, I mean, there are salaries in a lot of other silos, but that was the general fund numbers.
I remember now.
So in working closely with the budget people, we did determine that there's enough money to do the 80% plus the 1.25 with the funds that were left over after doing the 80%.
Tell me.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Tell me how the merit increases, I mean, is it the supervisors evaluating the employees and then they bring it to your table and you determine which ones fared better than the others, or?
No, a supervisor grades their employees. Some of the supervisors have the employees do a self-evaluation first in order to see how the employee believes they've done.
Good.
But then supervisors will grade them. Those supervisors have their department heads sign off on the evaluation first to make sure that it's meets within their understanding of how the employee's performing. And then they meet with the employee and go over the evaluation. And then they come to HR and we load them into the system.
Is it safe to say that every employee gets a merit increase, or some don't, some do?
No. There are some that fall below expectations, and when those occur, they do not get an increase. They're put on a probationary period for performance, and they're given a period of 3 months to improve. And at that time, they receive another evaluation in January of each year. And if, so we do our evaluations during the month of September. They become effective October 1st. They have October, November, December to improve, and they get another evaluation in January. And if they don't improve at that point, another 3 months can either be extended or they are let go based on performance.
So on the first scenario, if I meet, I might qualify for an increase. Surely if I exceed, I know I probably should.
That's correct.
But if I meet, do I qualify?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Morrison?
Where in the pay scale will most of these raises go to bring them up to 80%? In which classification? Would it be those on the bottom, those in the middle, those on the top?
It's all of these.
It's the ones on the bottom for the most part.
It's from.
Back up on your screen, you had them.
From grade 3.
On the left side.
Do you see the grade 3, which is a lower grade, is at about?
Yeah, there's one person in a grade 3.
But they would definitely, if you took it to 80%, they would definitely go up,
yes,
right?
because right now they're sitting at 70%.
And you listed those. Those were mostly code enforcement. Right there. That's who would, if you did option number 2, that's right there who would receive the most of the bulk of the raises to bring them up to 80%, and that would leave 1.25% to go to people who exceed expectations.
All right.
Meet or exceed.
Meet or exceed, yes.
Well, those people on the bottom are the ones I want to be brought up.
Absolutely.
I mean, you give a 3% raise to someone making $100,000. That's $3,000 a year. But the man that makes $18,000 only gets $540 per year.
You're right.
And then most of those that are making 70 and above, there's 44 that earn more than 70. 31 of those already get a car allowance on top of that.
Mr. Morrison, if you look here, if you did the 80% deal, that number 33, that item, the person in classification 33 would get some kind of a raise to go up, but otherwise
most of them are going to be on the bottom and,
yes,
and in the lower middle.
Yes, right.
I don't have a problem with that.
Just to give you a good example here, Our people that are at grade 11s, which are the admin assistants and some of the other jobs that I listed on there, they're falling at 69%.
What is
So
the
they'll
mid-
get an 11%
What is the
increase with
mid-range
that.
of that group?
Of a grade 11?
Yes.
25.
It is 26,794.
Those are the people. Those are the people that need the raise so that they can make a living, so they've got a livable salary.
Absolutely.
The midpoint was 26,794.
That's correct. The
Plus
minimum is
grade 11.
21,435 is the minimum.
And the top of that grade?
32,155.
Thank you.
Mhm. So I know, Councilman Morrison, you've talked about that quite often, and this particular chart really screams at us to tell us that it's those low
I would like to see
ranges.
it where nobody in the city makes less than $10 an hour. Now, that is my dream. That's my goal. Where everybody makes $10 an hour. They can live on that. And if they don't work, then they can go find a job somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that most people, if you pay them a living wage, they'll work and they'll try. And that's what I'm trying to get to. I
Right.
would like to get those bottom wages up.
Sure.
So that these people can afford to work and afford to live.
Now, if you look at our the grade 7, which that particular range came in at 85%, so you can see that the line is above the 80 there.
change there.
There's 63 people in that classification, and those are our maintenance workers. And so they are, they are out there every day working very hard. And the starting salary for that position is pretty low, but it compares favorably with what other cities are paying. But now what this does do is the light equipment operator is the position that maintenance workers achieve to be. And the light equipment operators are in the grade 11 where they're going to get an 11% raise. So that's going to give our maintenance workers a place to move to,
Well,
which is,
I believe I could accept that because it's doing basically what I want.
Mhm.
But I still want to work on those on the bottom.
Okay, let's go back. Go ahead.
I was going to say, going back to those vacancies that you showed, that doesn't necessarily mean those are all at the bottom. Is that right? These aren't all at the bottom.
these are all,
Well, it's-
they are all jobs that fall
rem-
below 80%.
She said
Every one of them.
46, there are 46 vacancies. If you look at that, the math says that about, 60% of the people are below 80%, 40% of the people where there's a vacancy are above 80%. So it's not a telltale that that's the issue. But anyway, is there other question? I need to recognize Mr. Hirschfeld. Mr. Hirschfeld.
Go back to the slide of the little bar graph. One more. There you go. Okay. So if we do this year, we'll be solving this problem and we won't be kicking the can down the road anymore.
We will solve it for this year.
Solve it for this year. And I realize that times change and some of that happens, but next year when it comes up, we will have hopefully
Close the gap
equalized
some.
closed the gap where we're not facing this at least as much.
Correct.
Fair statement.
Fair statement, but it's something that needs to be done every year. I mean,
Understand.
truly in a compensation plan, you want to adjust for the ranges as well as merit increases. That's how people move.
But I do know that there was a plan to start this and then it just kind of,
We ran out of money.
we ran out of money, I know,
Yeah.
and so then it just kind of died down.
Mhm.
So we've had a couple years where it just had not much has happened. So
Right.
this is our year to maybe get things closer to where they need to be,
Right.
correct?
You said it.
Okay. And then one more statement, one more clarification on that.
Yes.
This excludes meet and confer, correct?
It excludes meet and
Okay.
confer, but it
All right.
includes fire.
Okay, got it.
I'll make a motion to accept option 2
Okay.
of the pay grade and pay raise.
Just go back, go to that slide just to make sure.
Well, I have one more question, and
There-
then I'll probably second it.
That's, the option 2 is bring applicable pay ranges up to 80% of the survey and apply the remainder of the funds in a 1.25% merit increase for those who meet or exceed expectations.
I'll second that.
What would it do if we took the money that we have and just figured out what we could do as a per-hour raise, 50 cents an hour, and gave 50 cents an hour from the lowest to the highest? How would that work? Would that level the playing field? Would that bring us up to 80?
All that would do would pay, no, that wouldn't change your ranges at all.
It would not.
It would only give the people an increase in salary, but it wouldn't help us for bringing new hires in because they come in that pay range. So this fixes the range in addition to moving the people.
I understand.
This
Thank you.
gets us closer to closing the gap.
That is correct.
And we may not get it all done this year, but it's a step
start.
forward.
We'll all get to 80 this year.
We'll
Okay.
tweak it again next
I
year.
have a motion, and a second to take option 2, which is to bring all the applicable pay ranges up to 80% of the survey and apply the remainder of the funds in a 1.25% merit increase for those who meet or exceed expectations. Any further questions on this? Okay, is there public input on this item? Okay.
Council, appreciate your time. In previous discussions that I've had up here, one of the things that we have discussed was the previous compensation study where previous councils, and I know you can't hold anybody accountable for previous councils, but it made a commitment to do that. And through that process, we were actually supposed to be at about 95% now, and we went back. We fell backwards. The point I want to make is I know that some of you won't be here next year, and some of you will. And for those of you that will, I hope that you will make the commitment to follow through with this compensation study. And you know, it is important that we're able to recruit and keep employees. I think it is the same for all the city. It doesn't matter how much money you're pumping into any kind of projects that we want to do here in San Angelo. If you don't have employees to do it, it's not going to get done. That also being said, I appreciate that we are making this movement at least, but I do want to emphasize this is 80%, which is 20% below the average. Okay, I mean that's where we're at. We're 20
below the midpoint.
Midpoint average, as she said up here, I think earlier, and everybody shook their head.
There's also things that could be challenged about this, Chief, and they are, why is Lubbock even in this? What I'm saying is, I think this is a great move. I think that it makes sense, but I don't know what the numbers should be, and I'm not at all convinced that Lubbock ought to be a comparable city for us. I'm very convinced that Wichita Falls should be.
I think that the cities were picked by a study that the previous
That is
compensation
true.
study
We
did,
picked
yeah.
benchmark studies when we
But-
first
but
started this, and Wichita
with the
Falls was in there.
But I mean,
Lubbock
with a
wasn't.
consultant, with a consultant's help, and we're going back to that, and we're moving forward with the same cities. But all I'm saying is, you know, I just don't see Lubbock with that tax base, with 250,000 people. I just don't see us as being the same as them. What I do like, though, is what Mr. Morrison's saying. I'm glad that we're making some moves on as you saw the bars. I think this is a good move. I would struggle to say that we would get to 95% unless it's 95% of some of those cities, not all of those cities. That's what I wanted to say.
Sure,
Okay.
appreciate it. Okay. Thank you.
I understand what you're saying, Chief, though. You're right.
But I mean,
We need to bring it up so that we can be more competitive.
We have to.
And unfortunately, I'm probably the only department head that gets up here publicly every year to emphasize that to y'all.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because I can without a retribution.
That's why we keep you around.
I have a question while the chief is here, but are we going to talk about the meet and confer after this, or?
It's already an agreed
Done deal.
upon deal, and it's already done.
I guess my question for the meet and confer, can I ask a question about that?
Yes, I think you can. It's pay.
Does all your staff participate in it, or are some aren't in it? How does that work?
The civilians in the department do not, and administration does not. So the assistant chiefs and myself do not participate in meet and confer.
So your assistant chiefs would then fall under this?
The 1.25.
Okay.
Absolutely. I do believe in this category, our sergeants fall below the 80 percentile, even with the meet and confer contract as well.
Is that the 33?
Is that 33?
No. No, it's lower than that? Okay. That's all right. I appreciate it. I saw where some in the middle, and one pretty far over was below 80%. So.
Right, and the sergeants at PD, with the meet and confer agreement that we have in place, that will move it to 80%. It's sitting at 79 right now, so
Yeah.
it'll move up as well.
80 seems like we definitely have to be there.
I have one more, just to learn. And again, I'm with Charlotte. I think I wish you would have given it to us early.
I wish
But
I
go
had
back
it
to the
done
bar.
earlier.
Go back to the bar graph.
Yes. Whoops, wrong way, sorry.
Tell me who was a pay grade 3 and who's a 47. Just
Who, in as far as job titles?
Right.
A 3 is our custodian,
Mhm.
and our 47 is the city manager.
And how about a 21?
21s, those are accountants, the airport operations coordinator, athletics and aquatics supervisor, business analyst, business and finance analyst, fire inspectors, the internal auditor, multimedia coordinator, planners, recreation supervisor, registered nurse, and the transportation planning analyst.
Okay, I was just trying to get an idea of what
Yeah.
was in there.
That internal auditor is a position we've been unable to get qualified applicants for. That's a discussion we had with the audit committee, and we're just struggling, so maybe this will help us get qualified applicants.
Thank you.
Okay. I got a motion and a second related to item number 2. I repeated the motion. It's there in front of you. And is there any further public input? Okay. Let's call for that vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Outstanding.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, folks, would you like to do 21, 22 through 28? Would you like to table the rest of these and be done for the day? What's your pleasure?
I would like to table 22 through 28. There's no reason to do
21's
those
also
today.
related to that, Mr. Morrison.
Did we not do 21?
Did we do 21? I don't think
We've
so.
already done 21.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So 22.
Thanks.
22 through 28.
Okay.
I just want to remind everyone, I mean, I'll go for tabling it until our new city manager's here, but I just want to state that these fees have been approved in our
Through the
budget
budget.
process. It's
Oh.
been approved, and you can always today, you can approve these, but set your effective date for, say, January 1st. And then that way, there will be from now until the first of the year to put out the notice for the people to get accustomed to and adjusted and plan in their budgets for these fee increases. If we continue to postpone, people cannot make a good business plan to put it in their budgets. And that's why my recommendation or my motion would be to accept them today and not make them effective till January 1.
Okay, you made it in the form of a motion.
Did you second me?
Y'all, I think we don't,
I made a motion to table 22 through 28. I don't know if I got a second or not.
I didn't.
I don't think we voted through that. Mr. Morrison, we didn't vote it through.
To approve all these, and I mean, that's what she just made a motion for, is to approve them all.
Approve them all with a January 1st effective date.
October,
So
November,
people
December,
have,
3 months, we lose a quarter of our revenue we projected, but a quarter we can handle. And I like the idea of saying, hey, you know what? You don't like these fee
Was that a
increases,
motion?
get your stuff and get going.
Yes. You give the people a plan to make their budgets, and you give them the opportunity to approach us for some sort, amendment and whatnot
I
before
understand you.
January 1. But we're making the decision and getting on down the road. The decision's been made, the money's in the budget. I mean, it's been made.
Well, I
It's
mean,
just
it's-
implementation of this.
It's what we said earlier. We either are going to pass these through, or we're going to have to do something else in the budget, because we depend on this money to make the budget work, so.
Okay, well, I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll second
Alicia, did I make a motion?
that. But nobody seconded.
Okay.
You did, Mr. Morrison, but it didn't get a second, and it didn't get voted through.
I didn't hear your motion, but.
I heard the statement, but not as a motion.
Okay. That's what
That's-
I heard the
That's what I
statement,
heard.
but not as a
That's what I
motion.
heard.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, that's 22 through 28. It's all the items that were in the budget. I have a motion and a second, so now let's ask for questions, comments, those things.
If we're going to, and I'm with Mr. Morrison, I wouldn't mind tabling it for the next time around. If it just means a couple more weeks, I think that revenue is still coming in. Somebody's still going to go out there and buy whatever they need to purchase, permits or alarms or whatever. It's not going to stop. Is that right? I mean,
Well, no, you're not going to be at the new fee, though. And again,
Right.
the issue is, what they said this fee would do is cover in other words, you put a budget through at $54.5 million. That included this revenue. So if you take this $250,000 of revenue out, then you're not covering some of the expense. Sorry, did I get a number wrong?
No, you're on the right track there, but I think you were going to hit a conclusion that would leave us short. The budget that was approved.
Because there was a surplus.
Because there was a surplus, yes, sir.
But I mean, the surplus, I mean,
I
I go
think
back
that's
to
what
what Mr.
Kendall said.
Hirschfeld said way back when there was a surplus. When you think about the water fees and whether or not what's gonna happen with the sale of water and should we have money, and so you're spending money now that you might want to have later. That's perfectly said, though. I sure appreciate it because you do have a surplus in the budget. So the fact is, if you didn't want to do this, you could still be okay.
But are we just talking about a 2-week delay, or?
No, she said January the 1st,
Oh.
which allows the city manager that we've hired to come on October the 10th, allows him a lot of time to look at these, come back to you and say, I'm not sure you ought to do this. I mean, and take corrective action and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she gave you a lot of room.
I guess that does the same thing I was wanting, just from a
So-
little different direction.
So,
It just, I mean, it doesn't go to effect immediately. It gives our city manager time to just look at them, to look at the budget, to how it affects the budget, and it gives the citizens, the business owners especially,
To know what's
the
coming.
users that use these fees, the opportunity to build them in their annual budgets or express their opinions to us.
Yes, I like that.
I'll go with you on
Okay,
that.
there's a
But they're
motion.
already approved. I mean,
I understand that, but we can adjust if we feel necessary. I mean,
So they
that's-
will not go into effect till January 1.
That's what her motion is.
Okay.
Her motion is to accept them as presented, but with a January 1st implementation date. Okay. Further questions or comments? Public input on this item? Call for this vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
nay.
Okay.
Mayor, I think we need to give the Crystal Ball of the Day award to Councilmember Farmer. Back when we were trying to put a proposal together, we were asking council how they felt about these things, and this was exactly what she said. The fees, I understand. I'm not happy about them, but I understand if we can give folks a little bit of time. So this was her initial suggestion months, or several weeks ago. So congratulations for
Crystal
the-
ball.
the
Very good.
effectiveness
Well, I
of your
broke
crystal-
it.
I definitely will be talking to the city manager. I hate to give the taxpayers $180,000, then turn around with the other hand and take $250 away from them.
Okay.
That's going the wrong way, so.
Item number 31 is related to the drought stage 3, and so should probably be tabled and dealt with when we're dealing with those items. Item number 32, I would suggest that we let move back and be on the next agenda again. So it's 4:50. I'd like to see us move forward with preparing for the next meeting and get out of here. Is that okay with the rest of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move to H, follow-up and administrative consideration of matters in the executive session. There's nothing to be brought forward. Item number 34, this is the various board nominations, the Design and Historic Review Commission. So we have Bill Carter, Benjamin Villarreal, Hal Nolke, and Gary Donaldson, and we have Margaret Mallard.
Motion to approve
Okay.
as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, got a
Is
second.
that
from-
A and B?
That's A and B.
Okay.
Okay, so Development Corporation also.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's A. That's A.
Okay.
I was looking at the two items to the,
Okay, she's doing A only, and Mr. Hirschfeld also A only with his second. Call for that vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I make a motion to approve B.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second on B. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 35, announcements and consideration of future agenda items.
Just for the record, I will be at the Ports Plains quarterly meeting in the next 1st of October. I will not be here. I will be at
Okay.
Ports Plains.
Thank you.
We need drought level 3.
I won't be here either.
Really?
Are you?
For drought level 3?
Thank you.
Folks, you better hear that. What did you just hear? You heard two people not here. That was October 2nd, right, folks? Both of you? All right, so now we need to be talking about, I mean, we don't need to be down to whether or not Mr. Adams is here and that kind of thing, making those decisions. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you want to put together a special meeting? What do you want to do?
When? October 9th?
I'll be back by the 9th, but I'll be gone that entire first week.
The 9th and the 16th? Is that going to muster with everybody?
It's back-to-back.
It's
I'm sorry?
Back-to-back.
On the,
Let me look at my phone.
well, I really feel like we need to stay with the 16th because I really do want that drought stage 3 to get kicked in. So the thing is, then you're not giving them any notice, which I hate. I mean, I wish we were doing the 2nd and the 16th.
Well,
Charlotte,
about September 28th.
Charlotte, are you going to be gone all week? That's
No, I'll be gone to the Ports Plains.
Oh, you'll be with.
Yeah.
Okay. But all week, you'll be gone.
No, I won't be gone all week.
You won't be gone all week that week. Easy.
I mean, I realize it's another meeting next week, but can we
I can't.
move it to next week?
I'm out the 25th.
I'm
The
out
25th, but there's the 24th, 26th, 27th, 28th. I mean, since we're going to call a special meeting, it doesn't have to be on Tuesday.
Okay.
Plus, this is the annual board meeting of the Port Plains. Possibly we, should discuss, because board reappointment time is up, and that should be discussed as well.
Well, I'm okay. I'm out next week. I'm out on the 25th, 26th. I could do the 27th if you're trying to do it ahead of time.
I could do the 27th or the 28th, either one.
For the 24th?
24th?
Well, I would be a little late, but I could be here on the 24th.
24th is not, the 24th, 25th, and 26th aren't good dates for me. The 27th is a good date. I'll look at the 28th.
Well, if y'all will get with Fred and just let him know that he needs to be here that day, you'll still have your quorum.
The 2nd?
We're making big decisions on exemptions of drought level 3. And that's what I have a problem with.
Well, again, what about the 27th?
Works for me.
Why did I say that? I must be in the wrong month. Hang on.
September the 27th?
Yes, sir. Dwayne, the 27th?
Yeah, as far as I know, I'll be all right there.
I'm okay.
Mr.
Good.
Alexander?
Good.
Mr. Hirschfeld?
I may be a little bit late, but I'll be here.
Okay. Ms. Farmer?
27th?
Let's move the 2nd to the 27th, please. Okay. And
So
then keep the
27th.
No October 2nd meeting, you said?
No
Move to the
October 2nd
27th.
meeting. We're
Okay.
going to have September 27th, and then we're going to have October the 16th. Can that work?
I can't find a reason why it doesn't work.
Okay.
No objection.
Okay. Thank you.
While you're contemplating that, I'd like to talk about, get some guidance on the Ports to Plains Board appointment. I've had communication from Coast DC Board that they would like some input on that. They fund our membership, but that appointment has always existed as a member of council, and council has always made that selection. I think staff would appreciate your guidance for how you'd like that process to move forward.
Well, to me, with all things on all boards, whether it's Costa DC, the Downtown Development Corporation, any of them, we as council answer to the public, and we approve budgets for those. And I firmly believe the decision belongs to council with recommendations or input from their seat of their person that sits on COSA-DC. That's certainly acceptable and to discuss, but those kind of decisions, it does, to me, doesn't fall under the realm of the COSA-DC board.
I would concur. I mean, I believe that, when I look at the role of, and I haven't been there, so I don't know what it is, but I would have to presume that, really the role on this thing is more of a lobbying type, discussion. I don't want to say influence, but, trying to convey big picture items of, with other probable, I'm assuming, elected officials on some accounts. And I mean, I think it's appropriate where it is.
And our city's goals, the city council's goals within that Port de Plains corridor. I mean, we oversee the big picture, whereas our various boards see their section of it and only their interested section of it.
And I'm happy for their input also.
Yes.
But welcome it, but it will be, I think it's our decision.
Then, unless I hear objection, what we'll propose is that we have an agenda item for that appointment on our next meeting on the 27th. And if there is an opportunity for COSA-DC to provide input or recommendation, or they can attend our meeting and provide input directly at the meeting, we'll proceed that way. All right, thank you. I also show that we need an agenda item for exceptions to drought level 3. If we consider drought level 3 on the 27th, that'll be the second reading of that ordinance amendment. And at that point, council will have the authority to grant exceptions, and so we'll have an agenda item in accordance with considering and acting, if necessary, on that. And then,
Mayor, we may have an issue on the item 14, the second reading for the general development standards on that visual clearance on corner lots. Normally that has to be published. I just need to clarify that with AJ, so that may be an issue on that one.
So it would, if it didn't meet, it would go to the next meeting.
Right.
I think that the media, Matt, I think that these people all left the room thinking October 2nd is their day to come pitch their argument to be exempted, and now it's a different day. So make sure it's clear in the paper that the council moved it up to the 27th. I really think it's very important. Thank you, Matt.
You demand.
What else?
You can print that too.
I had one I shared with Michael, and how did I phrase it to you on the parks? I had...
yeah, you want me to go or you want to go?
You go ahead.
We've got a piece of property. A couple of years ago, when we were going through a tough time in the budget, one of the things we talked about, well, this is back, we talked about a park property earlier today. During that same conversation, there are miscellaneous small patches of property around the city that are owned by the city, and we talked about varying maintenance levels associated with those. During that budget process a couple of years ago, we talked about not maintaining those or maintaining those at a lower level. Councilman Silvas has been an advocate for a particular piece of property and would like that on the agenda to consider. And so that's one of the things we talked about.
And I like your idea that we have an option of maybe planting some wildflowers out there at that area, because it does need some TLC, okay? And I mentioned it to Carl earlier that and we talked about the park that we talked about, and I said if that thing is getting maintained or mowed, I was told different. I was told that nothing was being done. Not to that one, not to any other park, and then I get thrown in this 10-foot parameter around the park. That they're doing. But I think folks around town, especially on the east side of San Angelo, always look at that, and I'll run into them at the stores and say, hey, that little piece of park property looks terrible. But I like your idea of maybe we can add some wildflowers and get prisoners to come out there and just kind of cultivate it in some way. Even that is a shot in the arm of the way it looks like now. So that's my interest.
I feel like most of those things should be mowed enough to kept, in other words, if code compliance would say, we need to write that person a ticket, we need to be susceptible to that level.
That's not our policy right now.
That level of, I'm not saying we should be written a ticket, Mr. Alexander. I'm saying we should be.
Let them go.
Yeah, we should
Let
be
some lands
thinking,
go.
yeah, but we should be thinking, look, if we would make somebody mow that, go mow it. And somewhere in there, that's probably where we ought to be.
But then we need to get on it because these things are growing trees. And I got constituents complaining, saying, "What happened? How come y'all don't have to follow the rules?" And
If we want to be the most desirable city by the year 2027, we need to plant the seed now, so to speak, and get some of those things looked at.
I don't want us to be exempt from things we make other people do.
Okay.
Well,
that happened about 3 or 4 years ago. 3 years ago, maybe. 4
Joe,
years ago.
I think the most effective way is bring back a discussion of this particular property and.
We do, and we can have them report back on their mowing schedule, but yes, we try to adhere to our own rules. If we get in a rainy spot, yes, sometimes we get behind on that as others do in the city, but typically we try to adhere to our own rules, although those may be, more than I would want in my yard taller, but they
But some areas are suitable to go back to a natural state, and I think that this one was one of those with a border around the edge, and if council thinks that that's not an appropriate way to treat it, we can certainly talk about it. You bet.
Gotcha, I got you. Okay.
Well, if we're going to handle this one park we talked about, and I've seen it, and it's been a couple weeks ago, and it was completely mowed. If I would see the 10-foot perimeter mowed and the inside growing, and it naturally grows, then I have no problem. But if you're going to treat one area this way, well, it needs to be the same everywhere else, And I don't want to hear those folks saying, well, look at our little pad, little park over here. So anyway,
We'll bring back an item to discuss that too.
I have a question with reference to who maintains the intersection at Southwest Boulevard and the Loop. It's in extremely poor condition. It's worse than a washboard, and I've received numerous complaints, and I was under the impression it's TxDOT, but I'm not real sure. So if you could take a look at it and let me know sometime between now and before the next council meeting, I would appreciate it.
We'll check on it. Generally, if you ask us, we're going to tell you that if it's good, we've done it, and if it's bad, it's somebody else's fault. But we'll try to get an honest answer for you.
Okay.
And again, last November, I had requested at the intersection of Sunset and Beauregard, or Sherwood Way, excuse me, Sunset and Sherwood Way, that the little city bumps markers that you put that show the turn lanes and the divider, that it was extremely poor condition on both sides, especially the side where Academy is, and that we really needed to get those markers out there. And Harold checked into it, and someone in the maintenance division said they would be on it, and it's never been done. And we really need to get them done. The traffic out there, the congestion, the reflectors, and the double-sided. So because people pulling out of the Stripe store and Academy and turning into the shopping, nobody knows where the turn lane starts and ends.
Okay, let me get us back on future agenda items. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Second. Third.
Okay, call for that vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.